all this technology and communication is here just to remind people, not to scare you. It's to make humans more human. And if you use this technology to make humans more human, we all can benefit. Welcome to Office Hours, episode 794 or so. We lost track, to be honest, and they started just picking up where they thought they left off. But more importantly, we are blessed to be here with my mentor, Blaine Bartlett. He will move your possibilities into reality. He sure has for me. People ask me all the time, do you have a mentor? I have at least 3 mentors at all time by subject matter, topic, and expertise, and know what position I play within the context of that mentorship. But one of the best mentors in the world is Blaine Bartlett. Check him out if you're looking for help, especially in telecom and scaling your business. Ironically, Blaine and I both circled the same lives in the early 90s and all the way through to today. He was in my neighborhood at Nokia as I was at Samsung. But today's guest is on the cutting edge of telecom. He's taken it through its landlines to cellular, now AI, and scaling his company and keeping it connected and secure. It's an indispensable progress for all of us in the information age. If you're utilizing our form for inform, outside the transform is, of course, inspiration. But let's talk about today, GCH Technologies. Welcome, George Cray, to Office Hours.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
We're happy to have you. You are looking at 2 guys that have paid more dummy tax in the telecom industry than most. So that makes us semi-experts, millions and millions of dollars through that. And let's talk about today's speed of progress comparatively from when we went from landlines to cellular and now what we can do with AI. Where are we when we're talking about growth and speed with AI being in the mix?
Yeah, I think in general, the U.S., and it is the most complex telecommunications country in the world. It kind of didn't get helped by the breakup of AT&T going back to 1984, and it's been just a landscape that is so fragmented. You have so many operators, you have so many mobile operators. That is just not typical in any country. And then with the advent of IP and voice over IP, it's just created more and more players that are basically taking advantage of communications. So it's kind of hard to put the genie back in the bottle. You've got technology, really expanding at a rapid pace. You've got a very fragmented industry, and you have really a big need of brands trying to communicate to consumers. But there is a lot of fraud that's going on as well. And there's a lot of bad actors that are getting in the middle of that. So you really have just this dynamic that makes it very difficult to navigate. When you talk about paying the dummy tax, there's lots of people that struggle because of just how difficult and how fragmented the U.S. market is.
Yeah, that fragmentation, and David alluded to this, and you and I were talking back in the green room before we went live here today. 84 divestiture with the AT&T system certainly set up this fragmentation in some fascinating ways. And I had the very good fortune of doing work with a lot of the baby bells that came out of that, but also with Bell Labs, eventually Bell Core, and that fragmentation. It was interesting, just at those early days, watching the divide start to creep in these baby bells as they each kind of claim their own territory, their own turf, and with that, their own. I use the word protocols, very generalized here, but their way of doing business was beginning to bifurcate and shift out. With GCH, and I've been poking around your website a little bit here, connecting carriers, platforms, and brands to drive progress. Just exactly how do you go about, in the face of all this fragmentation, how do you go about actually connecting these various platforms and in a way that's elegant? It's not a bolt-on.
No, I hear you, and that's exactly the challenge. And I'm really blessed to be in this opportunity because I was not a serial entrepreneur. I was in the big corporate machine. I did time at Belcor. I built large systems. This is how I grew up, helping connect all these components. But we've had an age where the mobile network has really taken over. Everyone to reach any consumer, to reach any customer, you are really talking about getting them on their phone. That's how you're going to get them, and that's a mobile phone. And so the world of breaking up the old landline systems, that's gone. It really is all about reaching people on their phone. Best way to reach people on their phone is really messaging. People don't answer calls anymore because of all the spam calls, et cetera. Unfortunately, that's one aspect that the industry is trying to resolve. But where GCH comes in, we've been really blessed to be working with CTIA. CTIA is the wireless agency. Their members are actually all the mobile operators that operate in the U.S. And so they're really a single force that is trying to unify how business gets done. And around messaging, they have something called the short code registry. And
Right.
they've asked us to actually host that registry, which we will beginning January 1st of 2026.
Okay.
And that is one of the more secure ways that brands can communicate to consumers using those 5 and 6 digit codes. You're probably pretty familiar with them on your phone. Maybe you're getting updates from, gate changes from an airline, or your prescriptions ready from the store. Those 5 and 6 digit codes, they're really very difficult to kind of break in and have bad actors spam. And so that's one of the more trusted mechanisms for brands to talk to consumers.
All right.
And when the uncertainty of technology exists, when we're building out different infrastructure, different networks, or different solutions today, I know when I was consulting on the stadium, it was a 5-year consult of trying to project what technology to put into the stadium. I could imagine an aircraft carrier that takes 17 years. Now, even since they built SoFi, I can't imagine someone hiring me to tell me what technology is going to be like in 5 months. And, you have these variances. What have you seen within just the context for all technology? How do we every force has a counterforce. How do we counterforce the speed in which technology changes because of AI?
Yeah, I think you're going to have that constant evolution. In fact, we've been using AI as part of GCH Technologies and building our platforms, and we've been witnessing the advancement. What we saw a year ago, we only launched the company in 24, and here we are just a year later, and we could see advancement in AI in how it enables so much more code development and so much just smarter processes for how you build a platform. And you also have to recognize that the bad actors are also leveraging this AI to put threats against us. And so it's almost an arms race that goes on for all technology companies on how to utilize the tools that you're given. Our role in the industry is really not to be necessarily well known, but we're going to be behind the scenes helping brands connect to consumers and supporting platforms that allow operators to scale and to provide communications at the right level so that brands can reach consumers in a much more effective way and also trusted way.
It's amazing. I love seeing, I started in telecom, well, internet 92, telecom in the middleware space, transcoding XML onto WAP phones, every path pre-on 724 era. And it's interesting because connectivity and security are always the issue. But the one thing that I love about it is all this technology and communication is here just to remind people, not to scare you. It's to make humans more human. And if you use this technology to make humans more human, we all can benefit. We can raise more money, we can help more people, and we can have more fun with our human experience. So I appreciate everything you're doing, George. You got to get together. We have 2 different big events in November in the city, so we'd love to invite you in November, I think 14th and 17th. So make sure my team reaches out. Thanks for joining us.
Excellent. Really appreciate it. A lot of fun talking to you.
Good speaking with you, George.
Awesome. Some things change and some things don't. We're going to find that out with Luca waiting in the wings here. Luca Zambello is here. He is the CEO of Journey Inc., Jurny, and Journey's NIA Copilot operating system for hospitality. I love this. There's so many as a services out there. He has outcome as a service. I want to start DaaS, detachment as a service, to counteract his outcome as a service. But we're going to continue the conversation about AI. Luca, welcome to Office Hours.
Thank you for having me, David. Good to see you, Blaine.
Nice Good to meet you.
The most intriguing thing, obviously, AI and how it has hugely impacted hospitality, because the hardest part of hospitality, I ran Lee Steinberg, the big sports agency, and no joke, half of my job of running the sports agency was putting on the Super Bowl party. If I could have had somebody else put on the Super Bowl party, I'd have been twice as productive. But I'm really interested in outcome as a service. Give me your definition, as you have AI operating systems for hospitality, how the outcome becomes the service.
Yeah, no, I think we're basically transitioning from an era of like software as a service, which is basically tools that help you do whatever you do a little bit better, a little bit more organized, a little bit more connected, to not looking for solutions that actually do the work for you, right? And obviously not 100% of the work, but especially the busy work. I think that's what's special about AI and what allows to create massive multiples on productivity, right? Like we see that on coding, right? Like doesn't do 100% of the coding, but it does a lot of it, right? And the same, we're bringing that into hospitality, specifically hotel space, Airbnb space, in which basically, number one, we had to centralize all communications into one place. And yes, the number one thing that everybody talks about is the chatbot, so ability to answer guests, but also how do you take all those informations and leverage it to automate your entire operations, to customize guest experience, and how do you bring hyper personalization at scale? I think up until today, personalization has always been a trade. Either we're extremely scalable, but you had to standardize, or if you wanted to personalize experiences, you couldn't be that scalable, right? And I think AI is really changing that, especially in hospitality, where you can create hyper customized experience for people at large scale.
I'm going to use your example of the Super Bowl party, David, and kind of look at if I was a significant organizer, as an example, and the outcome is important to me, and using the Super Bowl party, these organizations, hosting this. How would your agent actually facilitate taking a load off my plate? What would be the ultimate way that you would help work with me to define what, number one, the outcome is, and then number two, from an agentic AI perspective, what would be the mechanism by which this would actually get delivered through your platform?
Well, I bring the example a little bit more because obviously hospitality is broad. Us specifically, we're more focused on the guest management side. But what happens is when you go to a front desk or you make a reservation somewhere, there's a series of actions that have to happen. For example, in the background, right? Like somebody has to go and clean a room. Somebody needs to know that there's a higher occupancy in the room, so pricing has to change, right? If there's repairs and maintenance that has to happen, like somebody that has to take care of your stay, or like you may be traveling with family, so you may have specific needs because you're traveling with a family, or if you're traveling for business, you maybe have specific needs for that. So specifically, we take all those informations, we learn from this information, these different agents. So for example, you have guest communication agents that talks with the reservation agents to know if the room, for example, is available. What pricing is that room? Can give a quote, can accept the reservations, can also then trigger tasks to the people, for example, if the room needs to be clean, if the guest needs a towel. So basically all of that operations that now it's like even on a small hotel is dozens of people. Now all of that can be almost fully automated. So that's and your outcome is how, as a manager, I don't have to be inside of every single little moving part. How can I have reservations that happen from reservation to checkout where I may have not touched anything, right? Of course, you have somebody physically going cleaning the units, but you didn't even have to give the task to the cleaners to do it. And when the cleaner cleaned the unit, they just click an app that they clean the units, and automatically the system has updated those informations. How do I maybe give them an upsells or sell them like additional service or a late checkout without me having to do a thing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's amazing how many different ways we can accelerate and aggregate information and also create a codified history, but then also synthesize that data to create more efficiencies. Does your system help to facilitate the third component of synthesizing the data in order to create greater productivity, accessibility in hospitality, and maybe even gratitude, which is, for me, the backbone of hospitality? To have gracious service will keep them coming back. It is great to have people stay with you, but sell for you in hospitality. That's the secret sauce.
Yeah. Well, absolutely. So, for example, one of the biggest things that we found having a massive impact, bigger than even we thought, it was the sentiment analysis, live sentiment analysis that happens in all the communication. So, for example, if everything is going great, the guest doesn't necessarily need too much attention. But if there's something that you feel that there's distress, that often, even from a front desk agent, doesn't even come through the management. Now, even on hundreds of reservations or thousands of reservations, at a glance, you can see what requires your attention. And also, you now can quickly analyze what caused that, and are there any commonalities? Can you bucket some of these commonalities into specific buckets so you as a business can actually take actions? That's going to be huge, by the way. This is hospitality, but it's going to happen across the board. To really take in, now you almost have the ability to be in millions of conversations and really just gather the data that is helpful to you, which is extremely hard to do. Up until now, it was basically impossible. But this is going to have an impact outside of hospitality, basically every single industry.
I think that we can create outcome as a service and apply it to so many different operating systems beyond just the industries of hospitality. It used to just take us from 0 to 1. Now it assists us from 1 to 100 and synthesizes 100 back to 0 and 1. Journey's NIA Copilot will help you if you're in the hospitality business, facing those challenges. A 3-time founder, over 12 years experience in scaling hospitality startups, looking at how Journey can increase the value of others' journeys. JURNY, go to journey.com. Luca Zambello, we'll look forward. We're going to be up at SoFi next week. We'd love to have you join us at our studio and office at SoFi Stadium next week, since you're a neighbor up there in Los Angeles. Invited, not obligated, but thanks for joining us.
Love to join. Thank you for having me.
You got it, Luca. Congratulations. All right. We got our cleanup hitter waiting in the wings. Hopefully he is not too disappointed like me that his Houston Astros aren't going to be in the World Series this year, but Kevin Jordan's in the house. I'm a fan of Houston, but I'm most importantly, as you, Blaine, have taught me, I'm a fan of Max Performance, the CEO at Max XXX Performance. Kevin Jordan, welcome to Office Hours.
Hey, thank you for having me, David. Good
I
to
see
be
you.
here, man.
You're in my normal office. I'm usually sitting right there in the captain's chair for the show. So thanks for taking the time. Speaking of performance, Kev, I've been in sports for 35 years, and performance obviously has been a big part of me being able to quantify and monetize athletes that we represented over all these years. And we were blessed to represent Houston's greatest athlete, or one of them, the incredible Warren Moon. So I know one or two things about performance and longevity, which need to go hand in hand. But one of the newer derivatives and variances in performance that was not when the Aikmans, the Moons, and the Youngs were represented by us, it was the mental health. We had mental focus. That was a practice of performance, but nobody talked about it. In fact, you avoided it because it would hurt your negotiations if somebody found out you were depressed or anxious. And there goes your contract negotiation, because unfortunately, tons of labels back then. How important today in performance do we use mental health to intersect with the other variables that have been there traditionally over the last 3 or 4 decades?
Well, that's we do not. There are the problem is there are no mental metrics in sports today. We have neglected to look at the mental in terms of performance, and I know that we look at things like, okay, your ability to focus, but how do we measure that? And so what we're doing at Max Performance is we're implementing mental metrics, mental health, mental well-being into performance, because we know if you feel better, you think better, you'll perform better. And so that's our goal here, is to implement mental metrics, mental performance into workouts, into routines, so that these athletes can improve along the way and not just wait to the final negotiating table to have to disclose that they're going through things, they've gone through things.
The metrics that you're using, Kevin, is I do a lot of work with mindset and just kind of working with high performance executives specifically, and study after study after study show that 95% of my results, in round numbers here, I'm just going to generalize, is generated out of a mindset structure that usually is invisible to most people. They're not consciously aware of what's going on under the lid here. With you in the app that you got I've got this in my hands. What are some of the metrics that you're actually identifying that the folks with whom you're working can pay attention to begin to find? It's not an on-off switch. It's a rheostat. How do I dial something forward? How do I dial it back? What is it that I'm dialing? What is it that I'm focusing on?
Yeah, so we've developed 5 key metrics that we measure. So we measure mental performance. We measure balance, mental balance. How well are you able to balance work, life, social, school, what have you? We look at communication, your ability to communicate effectively with your teammates, with your leadership, with your family. We look at leadership, your ability to work with other teammates, your ability to be coachable, your ability to mentor. And then we look at mental health as a way of helping to establish emotional control, being able to handle the pressure in situations and that, athletes are under. And with today's student athletes, they're under a lot more pressure.
One of the things I was going to say is there's, with social media, especially with the young athletes, a whole different aspect of mental health. This energy gap between I am, and this is what I want people to think I am, and then also my perception of what other people are. Because, it's so easy to be a virtual Great Gatsby today, standing in front of mansions and Ferraris that we don't own. I always say the only positive about the virtual Great Gatsbys of the world compared to the Vanderbilts and others who overspent in the 20s buying things they didn't need to impress people they didn't like, is that at least the kids today that are virtual Great Gatsbys, they don't have anything to lose because they don't own the shit that they're taking pictures in front of. So that's good news. All right, let's get to our last and final friend. Or that was our last and final friend.
That was, yeah. Kevin was number 3 in the show lineup today.
That's all right. I'm in Guatemala. it's early. I got my hero, my mentor, Blaine Bartlett. I know I tease him about being over 70, but I'd much rather have a 70-year-old business coach than a 19-year-old. So, Blaine, thank you for helping me so much in the world of virtual Great Gatsby's. You're the real deal. If you want to be mentored or mastermind by the real deal, just look up the double B, Blaine Bartlett, BlaineBartlett.com. He has moved my possibilities into reality. He can do so for you as well. Blaine, please send my love to your gorgeous wife and anything I can do to be of service. I love seeing you every week.
Oh, same here, buddy. And I'm just going to put a shameless plug in for a mastermind that I'm starting. Yeah. Not going to talk much about the mastermind, but I would want to invite people to just give me a call, set up an appointment. I'll talk to you about this mastermind. The whole focus is on, and we've been looking at this with all three of our guests today. How do you scale your organization without losing yourself, and scaling harder, setting bigger goals, driving people more, focusing on productivity increase, all that sort of stuff is not the way you do this. In order to scale effectively, you need to scale smarter. So that's the whole focus of this mastermind from a leadership perspective. It's 52 weeks. We work with the mindset, and it's all about that outcome of scaling more effectively, scaling more judiciously, scaling more elegantly, such that you still have yourself at the end of the day. You've got your team, you've got your organization. No, burnout has not happened. So, Gigi, if you could go ahead and just put that in the Sharon there so that we can at least get people to pay attention to what the URL may be. There we go. Yeah. So just ping this calendar and grab an appointment time. 20 minutes. Go over the program, see if you're a fit, because we're curating this. We've got I think about 4 seats left. So awesome. Give us a call.
We'll count that scaling mechanism as your takeaway. My takeaway of the day is check to see how you're staying aligned with what's doing well, what's stable, and you think is doing well, because things are accelerating, aggregating, and compounding exponentially in all technologies and in also performance. So please surround yourself with the right people and the right ideas. Get curated into that mastermind. Thank you, Blaine, for joining me. We will see you next week.
Always. See you next week.
Thank you. All right, everyone. Be more interested than interesting. Be kind to your future self and do good deeds.